So in my previous video, we saw how using a good, better, best tier pricing structure can simplify the purchase decision, increasing the chances that people buy from you, and even make customers feel more comfortable about purchasing a more expensive option. And I ended by stating that even though these seem little more than psychological tricks without much substance, a tier pricing structure can also be used in a purely rational way to take advantage of different segments' willingness to pay. Apart from that, I also mentioned that creating product tiers does come with a catch that's key to the strategy's success. So if you're interested in knowing more, keep watching. So let's now take a look at the purely rational arguments to implement a good, better, best pricing strategy. Unfortunately, this is a bit more complex than part 1, so we'll use an example to illustrate the point. Let's imagine that you're a pastry chef with a popular dessert blog, and you've been receiving a lot of requests from readers who would like to learn how you make the complex decorations you show in the photos of the dessert recipes you share, which left you wondering if they might be interested in a decoration techniques course from you. But another burning question is, will they actually pay for it? After all, you've gotten them used to getting all your content for free. And if they'd be willing to pay, how much? So you have contacted some of those readers who showed an interest in learning how you make your decorations, and you found that some of these would be interested in a course. Unfortunately, some were interested in a course, but just as you feared, they expected it to be offered for free like the rest of your content. However, you did find others who were willing to pay for such a course. So, you made a draft course plan and asked 10 of these willing to pay followers if they could help you understand if the course you would be developing to meet their wishes is in fact what they had in mind and if it would be helpful for them. Of course, amidst those questions about the course content, you included a few about its price. Now, note that this is for illustrative purposes only. Reaching out to someone and just bluntly asking how much they would pay isn't a good idea. Pricing discussions must be included as a part of a wider value discussion. And because pricing research methodologies have serious flaws, it's always a good idea to use at least 2 different questioning methods, such as the Gabor-Granger's or the Van Wessendorf's price sensitivity meter. You can find more details about the right questions to ask in my video about the 5 questions you must ask to price your product. Anyway, from those conversations with your 10 followers, you found out that 5 would be willing to pay up to $100 for your decoration course as you described it to them. 4 would go up to $150, and 1 would pay up to $200. So you could 1. Price your course for $200. In that case, only one of the readers in your sample would buy, making you a total revenue of $200. Alternatively, you could price your course for $150. In that case, 5 readers in our sample would buy it. That's the 4 that would buy for $150 plus the 1 that would buy for $200. Because if you would buy it for $200, at $150 you would obviously buy it too. So, in the second case, you'd have a total revenue of $150 times 5. That is $750. But you could also price your course at $100. In that case, all 10 readers in your sample would buy it for a total revenue of $1,000. This is, of course, a small sample, but from the looks of it, your profit maximizing price seems to be around $100. However, you can't help to think about the fact that some people would be willing to pay $150 or even $200. But you can't charge different people different prices for the same course. I mean, technically you might, but I don't like the idea. This is, of course, a personal thing of mine. I'm not convinced of the ethical part of it. I know that I don't like it when it's done to me, so I prefer other forms of taking advantage of different willingnesses to pay. But again, as long as you keep it legal and beware of price discrimination laws in your market, you do you. Anyway, back to our example. Another interesting finding from these talks with potential buyers is that they would like to have a forum or Facebook group in which they could discuss tips and recipes with other decoration enthusiasts, and monthly group calls to discuss doubts with you and connect with other students. Considering this additional feature request from your potential students, you decided to take your market research one step further. So you went back to the 10 readers and asked them up to what price could the better version be priced for them to still prefer it over the basic course for $100, where basic is the course as previously described. Better would include the Facebook group membership for students. And, following that, you ask them up to what price could the best option go, meaning up to what price would they still prefer to buy the best version instead of the better one. In this case, the best option was similar to the better one, but additionally included a monthly group call with students. And the results were: for the better version, you found out that one of the readers would be willing to pay up to $230. Two of them would be willing to pay up to $180. Five would be willing to pay up to $150, one up to $110, and one would still only be willing to pay $100. So if you were to price your course at $230, you would sell to only one person. For $180 to 3, $150 to 8, $110 to 9, and for $100 you would sell to all 10. And this is the rationale we've already seen before. People who'd be willing to buy at higher prices would obviously also buy at lower ones. With this information, we would then be able to calculate the total revenue we would achieve at each potential price point. And, following that, you had the same conversation regarding the best option. And this would be the results for the best option. One of the readers would be willing to pay up to $250 for the best option. 3 would pay up to $200. 4 would go up to $160. 1 $120, and 1 still wouldn't pay anything more than $100. Following the same steps as before, we get a total revenue per potential price point. Apart from all these numbers, one interesting finding is that while some people say that the Facebook group is a valuable feature, they aren't willing to pay for it. And one is willing to pay only $10. And a similar thing happened during the conversations regarding the group calls. So, after these conversations, you decided to offer the basic option for $100, the better option for $150, and the best option for $200. Let's now try to calculate our total revenue with this new price structure. So if we sold the best option for $200, we would sell 4 courses to our readers sample. That would translate into a total revenue of $800. And if we were to price a better version for $150, we would also be selling 4 courses. Why? Because of the 8 people who would buy the better option for $150, 4 of them would rather buy the best option for $200. So they would have already bought the best option for $200, leaving us only with 4 readers left to buy the better version for $150. That means that our revenue for selling the better version for $150 is 150 times 4, that is $600. Lastly, since 4 people would rather buy the best option for $200 and another 4 would rather buy the better option for $150, that leaves us with 2 readers in our sample who'd buy the good version for $100. So, our revenue for selling the good version for $100 would be 100 times 2, that is $200. This means that our total revenue with this new structure would be $1,600. So, with these 3 course options, you get to 1. Charge higher prices to those customers who value additional features and are willing to pay for them. After all, they want higher value, they are willing to pay for it, you are willing to offer it, so it makes perfect sense. 2. You get to have a lower price option for customers with a lower budget, giving them a chance to buy. It's possible that many might even prefer the better option, but their budget doesn't allow for it. So, thanks to the different options available, they can still get to purchase a good version within their means. Finally, with this good, better, best pricing strategy, you would expect to achieve a revenue of $1,600 from your 10 interviewees, instead of the $1,000 you would get if you offered only one version of the product. One note of caution here, though. Do note that this type of research methodology is too rational to capture the behavioral tendency to choose the middle offer that we've seen in the Part 1 video of the Good, Better, Best strategy. Capturing psychological aspects discussed there would require a completely different type of research methodology. This is just to illustrate the strategy. So, in real life, the preference for the middle option might be a bit higher than the one resulting from interview data. In my experience, when you openly discuss prices with people, they pay an attention to them that they're unlikely to pay in real life. And they don't like to admit to their irrational behavior. Also, keep in mind that from would buy to actually buying, there's a huge difference that can't be captured by this type of research either. Anyway, always remember that the point of this small sample, one-on-one discussions, is just to get a rough idea of the price ranges we should be working with. These small samples aren't representative of your entire audience, so they aren't suitable for price optimization. They're just a starting point. But back to our strategy. To make sure that your good, better, best strategy is successful, there are some important aspects that must be paid attention to. One is that for the strategy to be successful, it's important that the good version isn't already great. If your basic offering already includes everything most of your customers want, you aren't creating an incentive for them to choose the higher priced improved versions. So, it's important that the price and value of the different versions are aligned. The higher prices must be backed by the corresponding higher value for the customer. If this isn't the case, your strategy has to rely only on behavioral aspects, and those may not be strong enough to drive a significant number of people to buy the higher priced version. And the point of this strategy is actually to increase the number of people buying the middle option. Anyway, another important detail is that just because it's usually referred to as a good, better, best strategy, this doesn't mean that you need to do it with 3 versions. You can have more as long as the logic behind the versions remains the same. However, be careful if you want to have more than 4 versions. Adding versions adds complexity, and you are forcing customers to think harder. Thinking often delays purchase, sometimes indefinitely. So, giving them more options in hope that somebody finds at least one that matches their preferences, instead of attracting more customers, might drive them away as they are more worried about making the wrong decision. So, that's it for today. In the next video, I'm going to go over the 5 things that you must make sure you do before you have any value discussion with potential customers and start asking about potential prices. Because in the video that I published a couple of months ago, in which I talked about what you should ask your potential customers when pricing a product, I left out an important thing which is so ingrained in my mind that I thought was too obvious, but afterwards I realized that it wasn't. And it is the preparation that must be done beforehand and which will enable you to get the most out of your value discussion. So if that's something you might be interested in, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss it. Anyway, I hope you liked today's video and tell me, are you currently using a good, better, best strategy? Or are you thinking about implementing one? Let me know in the comments. Bye!